Arrived in South Africa, met up with an Afrikaans friend, and now we're heading to see John Edmond. And I promised I'd wear the red coat for him, so here we are.
This is my grandfather. He was the headmaster of one located school, also John Edmond the First. This is me, John Edmond the Second. My name is John Edmond. I've got no middle names, it's just straight John Edmond, spelt with an O. That is the Scottish Edmund. Edmund with a U is English, and Edmonds with an S is Irish. But Edmond is Scottish. So my parents are both Scottish. Father comes from Dumfriesshire, my mother from Lanarkshire. They met at school, and then they married and went to Northern Rhodesia. And my father was a mining guy, a mining engineer, and he started working on the copper mines on the copper belts. And I was born in a town called Luanshya. It's called the Roan Antelope Copper Mine because there was a hunter by the name of William Collier who was hunting there in the 1900s, and he shot a roan antelope, and where it fell, it kicked up the dirt, and there were some copper deposits. And that's how the first mine and copper was discovered on the copper belt, and that's why they called it the Roan Antelope Copper Mine. So I called my music company the Roan Antelope Music Company. So it means a lot to me, the Roan Antelope. This is my mother and father's side of the family. This is where my mother was born, in Crawford, Lanarkshire, Scotland. And this is their marriage. That's the little church where they were married, a place called Elvenfoot. It's a little place in Scotland. And up here we've got my father's certificate from the First World War. And that's his certificate from the Highland Light Infantry, which was his regiment. And then over there is the Northern Rhodesian Pioneers Association, of which my dad, he walked into Northern Rhodesia from Tanganyika in 1926.
You grew up in Northern Rhodesia?
Yes, well I was born in Luanshya, in the Roan Antelope Mine Hospital, and I grew up there. Went to primary school there, nursery school, primary school. And then my parents moved to Scotland for a couple of years because my mother was very, very ill with a heart ailment. So we went to Edinburgh, and I went to school in Edinburgh for 2 years. And when she was better, we returned back to Northern Rhodesia. There were no high schools in those days, and everybody had to go to boarding school. So when my boarding school days started, they put us on a train. It used to take 4 days from Ndola down to Johannesburg or wherever the school, or Pretoria, wherever the school was. Mine was at the Christian Brothers College in Pretoria. And I did my secondary education there. And then I returned back to Rhodesia, and of course, then I was eligible for call-up, and I was called up to the Rhodesian Army, and I spent 6 years in the territorial Rhodesia Regiment. 11 Platoon C Company, Bulawayo, 1956, 1957, and that's me there. That hell of a good-looking bloke there, the best-looking guy. And we served in many sort of conflicts there, a lot of riots, border patrols on the Congo. I was stationed on the Congo border. When the Congo blew up, we rescued a lot of refugees coming over from the Belgian Congo. And of course, we were expecting possibly an invasion by the Force Publique, who were the rebels in the Congo that took over, and maybe we thought they would get clever and try and take Northern Rhodesia, which they didn't. But anyway, we were ready for them, and I spent a lot of my military time on the Congo border. And then there was a lot of unrest in the northeastern province of Northern Rhodesia, and I served a lot of time there. And then, of course, I left Northern Rhodesia, and I was into computers. That was what I studied, computers. And there was a very good opening in Johannesburg for a computer analyst programmer. So that's how I arrived in the golden city of Johannesburg. But music was my first love, and in the evenings I played in all the coffee bars. And eventually I left the corporate business and I joined the Gallo Music Company as a professional manager for their music, their publishing department. And I spent 16 years there, and I retired from there and started my own music company. And then I went farming in the northern Transvaal, and that's where we are right at this time. So I've sold my farm, and I now live on a beautiful piece of bush. I still write a lot of songs about wildlife. That's my passion. Not only military stuff, but a lot of my stuff is now about birds. I've written an album on birds, animals, and that's what I do. I still love it.
So the vast majority of people will know your music if they know you from the internet, of course, from the Troopy songs,
Yes, of
which are
course.
very popular online.
Yeah, well, Troopy songs was probably after I'd been in the operational area, that inspired me to write those Troopy songs, because they made deep impressions on me, all the different facets, the funny parts, the tragic parts, and that's where Troopy songs actually were born, out of true life experiences, and they're probably the songs that will go on forever, because they play Troopy songs. I get letters from Croatia, Israel, soldiers from Israel, soldiers from all over the world. It doesn't matter who the enemy is, but I think being a soldier, you've got the same hardships. You've got the same, you still got to polish your uniform, or, you know, clean your rifle, or go into a skirmish. So it doesn't matter which army you're in. So for some reason, the Troopy songs have lived on. And I'm very chuffed about that.
So I wanted to ask about life in Rhodesia, because of course this is something that fascinates people online. And
Yeah, life in Rhodesia. Well, of course I was born there. I went to primary school in Luanshya, and there wasn't a high school, so everybody that got to high school standard had to catch a train at Ndola and go to southern Rhodesia or to South Africa, wherever they could get a boarding place in a school. And I got a place in Pretoria, in the Christian Brothers College, where I did my secondary education. And then I went back to northern Rhodesia and I studied computers. I went over to England and I studied at a place called Moore Hall, outside near a place called Cookham on the Thames. And that's where I did my computer studies. Returned back to northern Rhodesia. And then when northern Rhodesia got its independence, it became Zambia, things weren't going the way I really wanted it to go. And I saw a good opening for a Johannesburg company for programmer analyst. Took the job and I came to Johannesburg. And of course, as I said, my first love was music. And in the daytime, I was doing computer programming. In the evenings, I was playing in the coffee bars. And then a music company spotted me and said, would I like to come and work for them? So I worked for the Gallo Music Company, which were absolutely wonderful, wonderful family business. It was 16 years I was there at Gallo. And then I went solo. And I went farming and opened my own music publishing company, which I still have today. And strangely enough, it's called the Ronan Music Company. Yeah.
But I wanted to know, so you have this, all the Troopy songs about Rhodesia and such. What was life like in those times? Because for people my age, it's very hard to comprehend. What was life like for the average person living in Rhodesia? Because I've just come from Zimbabwe.
Yes.
And I imagine it was not the same.
No, it was not the same, because we had a war, and every able-bodied man and woman were called up to do some kind of service. So we were at war. So everybody was very militarily occupied in some way. Yeah,
So life was basically focused around the military
yeah, absolutely. Around
for
the military, yeah.
all the years of Rhodesian
Yes,
independence.
yes.
Okay.
But anyway, that's where a lot of the songs came from. And some of the songs I've written are tragic, some of them are fun. You know, I wrote one about my rifle called Daisy. And I wrote tragic ones, and like a song for you, Bob, friends that I lost, and people that were killed. And yeah, there's a potpourri of songs there.
So I wonder, for me being British, I've listened to all of your songs and it's wonderful. I suppose before I ask the next question, I'll ask, what do you think about the fact that, especially in the online age, a lot of people from all sorts of backgrounds have become obsessed with your music, especially in regards to that time?
Why are they interested, do you think?
What do you feel about it? The fact that so many people love the
totally
Trooper songs?
honoured. I'm totally honoured. I'm amazed. I'm honoured. And I actually don't see what they see in it, but they must see something in it. And I think I said earlier, speaking to you, I get letters from all sorts of places, like Israel. Soldiers from Israel, they hooked onto some of the songs.
Even right now, as we speak,
Even right now, as we speak,
the
and
conflict
there's
that's going on there.
Croatia. There was. I got letters from Brazil. Other places where there's military conflicts of some kind. Doesn't matter what side the people are on. The soldier's life is still the same. He's still got the same hardships. So it's nothing about the enemy, who is the bad guy and who's the good guy. It's about the tribulations of a soldier, basically.
So, being British, listening to your music, learning about the history of Rhodesia, UDI, all of this, it's very strange for me to comprehend. I can't quite comprehend as to what the British position was, why they were so against Rhodesia in a way that they wouldn't be against nations which are enemies. But, so I'm wondering from your perspective, what was the feeling towards Britain before UDI, once UDI had happened, and towards the end?
Well, I think that Britain was under a lot of pressure from the international community to, get rid of colonialism, basically. And I think they were under a lot of pressure from the United States, everywhere. So I think that's why the world was basically against us. Yeah.
So what was the feeling towards the British from Rhodesians?
Well,
that we were letting you down or betraying you or were in a tough situation?
Our former Prime Minister wrote a book called The Great Betrayal, which I think everybody should read. And we were sort of let down, but it's over now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked though is because one of your songs touched me, where it's talking about your family's history, and I think it's Daddy is a Trooper.
Yes.
And the one where fought to get here, to be a pioneer, and then the First World War fought and died with the British, Second World War fought and died with the British. So at that time in which the Rhodesians were asked to decolonize,
Yes.
what is it that made Rhodesia unique in the fact that they said no?
Well, I don't know, maybe just their stubbornness and resilience, maybe. Yeah, they didn't want to just hand over to anybody. And I think the big thing was they wanted somebody that knew what they were doing to lead the country, responsible government. I think that was the main fear, that it would go pear-shaped, with the wrong people at the top, inexperienced leaders. I think that's one of the main problems. Yeah.
So there was a feeling the British didn't really understand what you were dealing with.
No, I don't think they did. They thought that if they just gave it over to some politician, some black politician, it'll be fine. But inexperienced leaders, I think that the Roy Walensky, he was the first Prime Minister of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. And he was a very wise man. And he understood that eventually black rule would take place. But he said it should be responsible black rule.
So I wonder, I've met a few, I suppose we'll call them Rhodesians, along the travel I've done in Zimbabwe. And many of them had been in the RLI, or they'd been even blue jobs.
Yeah.
And all of these guys had the same answer to this question, but I want to ask you, Ed, which is, how do you feel about the Bush War and everything that was sacrificed and such, knowing how it all ended, how it is today?
Well, I think I said earlier, the winners lost and the losers won. So it was kind of futile, because we lost 500 to 1,000 soldiers, black and white. So that was rather futile. That was a shame, That's war.
So from the guys I found in Zimbabwe, who were visiting or still living there, who had served, what was interesting is all of them had a similar response, which is they wouldn't take it back. They did it because they wanted to defend their land, and even if they knew they were going to lose,
Yeah.
you have to fight, is
Yes.
how they put it.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think that was the fighting spirit of the Rhodesian people. We weren't going to just hand it over. Yeah.
All right. So, how do roadies around the world see Zimbabwe today?
They still see it as, they see it physically. They see Lake Kariba. They see the Chimanimani Mountains. They see Wankie Game Reserve. They see the animals. They see the beautiful part, the Eastern Highlands. That's what they see. And they just see the good things and the good times that they had there. They never think about, well, they do think about the bad times, but they think of all the good times and the good places and how beautiful it is, how still beautiful it is, and how the people, the Zimbabwe people, the black people of Zimbabwe are fantastic people. They really are. They're not what a lot of people would think they are.
Are people still, I mean, I imagine most people are still allowed to go back and visit. Would you be allowed to go back and visit Zimbabwe? Because you're so famous from the Troopy songs and such, would that be a problem politically?
Yeah, no, not a problem. As a matter of fact, I did a couple of, shall we say, covert tours to Rhodesia, to Zimbabwe. And I played in farmers' halls, I played in secret places, and a lot of the waiters were given the night off. And I played at a place called Kwekwe one night, and all the waiters had gotten the night off. And one of the songs that I always used to sing was Sweet Banana. And it's in Shona and it's in Ndebele as well. There's a verse in Shona and one in Ndebele and one in English. And I started singing the song, and suddenly out of the woodwork came these black guys. They didn't want to have the night off. They were ex-waiters. They came and they joined in and they sang Sweet Banana with me, and it was so rewarding. And there was no bad feeling at all there, not at all. I played in a place called isigodini, and right next door was a shebeen, a beer hall where they play loud music, and the next building was the police station. So I said to the organizer, listen, I'm a bit scared to sing troopy songs here. They said, no, the police will never hear it because there's a shebeen in between, so you just play what you like. So I played all the troopy songs at isigodini in their little town hall. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening. Yeah. So, no animosity.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So, when I asked about what life was back in Rhodesia, one of the things that's confused me to try and understand is race relations at that time. So you mentioned, for example, if these guys hear these songs, it's not a problem. When I was there, we played these songs in the car with an African driver.
Yes.
First time he heard them, he thought they were great. He was just enjoying himself.
Yeah.
So at that time, when you were singing these songs, what were race relations like? The different lives for the blacks and the whites in Rhodesia at that time?
There's no real problems there at all. No bad race relations at all. I never had any bad racial relations with black people, or I never felt any of that stuff
The
at all.
Nabili and the Shona.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I think there was a bit of tribalism there between Ndebele's and Shonas, but between blacks and whites, not really. There was a time when Robert Mugabe's 5th Brigade slaughtered a lot of Matabele people. I think it was quite a lot of people. And that was a little bit of a rough one for me. You know? That was really bad. The 5th Brigade trained in North Korea. It was Robert Mugabe's favorite little battalion. He sent them into Matabele land, and they massacred about 20,000 people, actually. A lot of people don't know about that, but it's a fact.
So when I was there, I found out about this.
Oh, did you find out about it?
Yes.
Good. So it's not just a rumor.
The policeman in Bulawayo was telling me about he used to see vans filled with bodies.
Yes, well, I had 2 Matabeles working for me on my farm here in South Africa, and they were just children at the time. And they said when the 5th Brigade came in there, they hid in ant bear holes and things like that. They watched a lot of their brothers or uncles being shot and massacred and thrown down a mine shaft. That's what they told me. So it was a fact. There was a lot of genocide that went on there between Robert Mugabe's people and the Matabeles.
Because for me, trying to understand these race relations at this point, it's it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
We think, or at least we're taught about Jim Crow in school, so I was thinking something like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
But you did have segregation or not?
No, there was no. It was no segregation. It was basically a colonial thing. There's no sign up saying whites only. There's no Jim Crow things. It was just like an unwritten, not law, it was just an unwritten thing that black guys didn't get on a white bus, and white guys didn't get on a black bus. And it was unwritten apartheid laws. That's the way I'd like to describe it.
Okay.
Yeah, and each person wanted to mix with his own kith and kin or with their own type of people, like white guys didn't want to go to the beer hall, and the beer hall guys didn't want to go to a white pub, and that's the way it was,
Was it the same between the Shona and the Billy? Like they wouldn't want to mix with each other?
I think there's quite a lot of tribalism there between the Shonas and Matabeles, because that goes back many, many years. It goes back to before the colonials even came there. The Matabele actually massacred a lot of Shonas and took them as slaves and that sort of thing. So it was an age-old feud between Matabeles and Shonas. Yeah. And of course the Matabeles were more warlike than the Shonas. Shonas were more pastoral people. I shouldn't say nicer people, but they were more pastoral people. Whereas the Matabeles were an offshoot of the Zulus, Mzilikazi. And of course they were warlike and, didn't play around with those guys, that's for sure. So I think that's actually what happened between blacks and whites in Rhodesia in the 1890s and around about that time. And Mzilikazi, of course, was chased out of South Africa by the Boers. And he skipped over the Shashi and the Limpopo River into what is now Rhodesia. And they took over, and they were more warlike than the Shonas. It was an offshoot of the Zulus. It's Mzilikazi. Yeah.
I went to his grave.
Yeah.
his custodians are still there looking after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But that's history, you know. That's history, and that things like that happen. But that's all under the carpet now. It's history. It's like you could talk about the Germans and the French, and you could talk about the Scottish and the English. But I mean, Scottish people don't come over the border and kill and steal sheep anymore, and that sort of thing.
I'm just trying to understand the past, essentially.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the massacre of the Nobilis really hit you. So what do you think people can learn or should pay attention to about modern-day Zimbabwe, the events that have happened there? What should we learn from it?
Well, I think that all that stuff should be forgotten about and swept under the carpet. It's the past. It's gone. And you know, I've had people working for me. The husband is an Adabili and the wife was a Shona. So there's intermarriages now, and a lot of that stuff is now cooled down, I think.
Okay.
Well, I hope so. But it was very cool. They were a loving couple.
So I think some of that's definitely happens. As someone who's just come from there. A Rhodesian symbol or whatnot, it's not something that seemed to cause much problems. It was viewed as you put it, it's history. It's just part of the past.
Sure.
Like if you go to Russia today, they look at Soviet flag and they think it's history. It's not meaning you're a communist. It's just our past.
No, it's the same as like Germany and Poland and Russia and the French are not fighting the Germans anymore, and the Scots aren't fighting the English anymore, except at soccer or rugby. But that's about all.
Fair enough. Well, thank you ever so much for your time.
But thank you, man. It's been wonderful, and I hope I answered some of your questions, and I hope I didn't go overboard too much.
Thank you ever so much, man.
Thanks for coming a long way.
So John was very nice, but we had to cut off the interview a bit shorter than I would have liked because of time. And the reason being that we need to get back to the city before the sun goes down. And the reason for that, my friend was explaining, is that there are spike traps. I'm just going to turn the camera so you can look. I mean, we're just driving along here as we are. And, Ernst, could you describe what a spike trap looks like and why you're scared? And why I should be scared?
Well, a spike trap is pretty much the criminals hide next to the road, and they are concealed there, and they throw homemade, almost like Mad Max style spikes on the road, which shred about one or two of your tires. They get in their vehicle and then they pursue you, sometimes for many kilometers, until your car literally can't go anymore, or if some drivers that are naive or not aware about what's going on immediately stop next to the road, then they either rob you. We've had murders as well, and unfortunately with women you get rapes happening through this method as well.
So Ernst was saying it's not quite like I Am Legend where the sun goes down and then the monsters come out and we all get raped and murdered and the car's blown up, but not too dissimilar that we shouldn't worry about it. Okay, so that's why we're leaving, to get back before the sun goes down, because it's not a joke either. Like, we were driving up this road and there's a sign that literally tells you not to stop because hijacking is such a high crime here. You know, it's bad when they put up a sign saying high crime area, because that means it's permanent.